times better than I did yesterday. But, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, no, I'll be okay. See, I brought my box of Kleenex.
Yeah. Hey.
Hey, Mike, I'm Brian. Nice to meet you. Good to meet you. Sam. Do you know? Is this where they want us? Do you know?
So, these are the first three tables. I think it's because we get down in the back row. Voters of Montana, please welcome to the stage your candidates for MT02. That is the Eastern District of Montana for the U.S. House. Your host for this debate, Mr. Mike Dennison, and we have candidates Brian Miller, who will wave now.
Hello.
Sam Lux, who will wave now. And Jonathan Windyboy.
So are you ready to go? So good afternoon and welcome to today's debate among the three candidates running for the Democratic nomination in Montana's Eastern Congressional District, known as District Number 2. I'm Mike Dennison. I'll be moderating today's hour-long debate, which is sponsored by the Lewis and Clark County Democratic Central Committee. I'd also like to thank the Helena Avenue Theater and the Montana Playwrights Network for providing this space for the debate here in Helena. Let's introduce our candidates. From right to left, we have Brian Miller from Helena, Sam Lux from Great Falls, Jonathan Windyboy from Box Elder. Thank you for coming, gentlemen. As we mentioned, they are running in Montana's Eastern Congressional District, which covers most of 40 counties in central and eastern Montana, including the cities of Helena, Great Falls, and Billings. The winner of the June 2nd Democratic primary election will be challenging incumbent Republican Troy Downing. Before we begin, let's go over the format. Each candidate will give a brief opening statement, after which I'll be asking the questions. The candidate fielding the question will have 90 seconds to answer, and the other two will have 1 minute to respond. The candidates will also have a 2-minute closing statement. So, let's get started. First question goes to Mr. Miller. Let's talk about the probably the most important issue in the world right now, the Iran war. Do you support President Trump's decision to attack Iran or not? What should the next steps be to resolve the conflict, and what role should Congress play?
Thank you, Mike. And how long do I have to answer this?
90 seconds.
Okay, thank you.
We got a timer right here in the front. Well,
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I do not support his decision. It's unconstitutional. And I have already said this, that he needs to be impeached as soon as possible for committing war crimes against the people of Iran. Not the mullahs. I don't care about the mullahs. but the people of Iran. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to impeach him. We are not going to have peace in the Middle East or in the world as long as he is president. He has made that extremely clear. He is the most dangerous president that we've ever seen in our nation's history. He is a threat to the republic. He's a threat to our democracy. He's a threat to everything that we care about in America. And I'm so disappointed in people like Troy Downing and all these others who claim that they care about the Constitution, and yet they have absolutely abandoned that in this case. In terms of the Middle East itself, the only way we're going to have peace over there is if we get out of the Middle East. I know it's going to be a bitter pill for people to swallow, but Reagan did that in the 80s when the Marine barracks in Beirut were attacked. That was a smart move then. Once we get out of the Middle East, we're going to have to let the Iranians and the Chinese and the Russians and the Gulf states figure that out, because we just can't do it. And I would also note that Trump keeps saying we don't need the oil, so why are we over there? We're over there because Israel wants us there, and that is not our fight. Thank you.
Mr. Lux, your response.
I fully agree with everything that Brian said there. The war in Iran is absolutely appalling, and I do not agree with President Trump's actions on it in any regard. Furthermore, I also agree with the idea that we need to impeach him. And for about the last 6 months now, I've been a member of Citizens Impeachment and the Courage Candidates, which is a coalition of about 140 candidates from all across the country who have pledged that we will co-sponsor and support articles of impeachment against any member of the sitting cabinet that violates their oath of office against Trump, Pete Hegseth, and any other members on day one when elected to office. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Windy Boy.
Thank you very much. That's a good question, and what I question is, why aren't the federal government and the three different branches of government taking the power? Congress needs to stand up and take the power back that this authoritarian regime has taken over. Our congressional delegation has walked lockstep in favor of what this president wants. So the War Powers Act that has been in place needs to be back in the hands of Congress, and the Congress needs to take this action. That's the way it's set up. That's what's in the Constitution.
Thank you. The next question goes to Mr. Lux, going back a little closer to home on this question about housing. Montanans all over the state are facing a housing market that for many is unaffordable or taking a huge chunk of their income. As a member of Congress, what can or will you do to attack this problem?
So there are two primary things in my campaign that I talk about a lot that I'd like to see happen to address this problem. The first of those is that I want to see the subsidies and the grant programs that currently exist that have been outdated since the 50s on what qualifies as a starter or low-income home to be revised so that the money that should be going to make sure that everyday Americans are able to afford low-income housing is not instead being used to build a $700,000 home marked up for $1 million and sitting on a lot outside of Helena or Bozeman, for years on end before it gets occupied. The second thing that I want to do is I want to create a new incentive program for home builders and home sellers that will specifically incentivize them to sell homes to existing residents of the state in which we live. Because we all know that a big thing that we face here in Montana is as it becomes a more and more desirable place to live, and as we have more people coming in from other states and buying up that real estate, is driving those costs up even more. So in order to do that, I want to make it so that for those that have lived here for at least 5 years and who have maintained gainful employment over that 5-year period, the sellers of homes in the state of Montana will be incentivized to sell to them over others. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Windy Boy, your response.
Thank you very much. In this last legislature of which I served, there has been many issues that pertain to housing, and some of the things that was brought forward and pushed by the Republican Party is that the bills that were passed through the legislature had become so much in favor of the landlords, leaving behind those who are renting. And those costs have gone up with as well as costs of everything else. And not only that, but when you're talking about the other issues that surround the housing, rise in costs, the affordability issue, the property tax increases, and all of these other things play a big role with the housing crisis. So is it a crisis? Yes, by all means. And it's true that a lot of people coming into the state that are buying up these properties, not only are they doing that, but they're also people, those are the rich people moving to Montana, thinking Montana is an easy target as far as coming into elected office here because you have the money. And so that's the truth of the matter, the way I see it, and that's the things that need to take place. Is we need to make those, send somebody to D.C. who was here for 68 years. That's me.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, your response.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to add first off to what Sam said. We need to realize this is complicated, and it's been going on for a long time. First off, we have to understand that the Fannie 30-year mortgage that exists would not exist in the free market. That's a creation of a government-financed system. And because a lot of people need to understand that the government is going to have to get involved in solving this problem, okay? It's a problem that's been partially created by government and needs to be solved by government. In addition to the stuff that Sam's talking about, we also need to take a very close look at the work that's been done by Ezra Klein in his book Abundance, because he analyzes it and talks about the fact that it takes a long time and it costs a lot more to build houses in the United States because of all the zoning and regulations, which we have those for good purposes, but now we do need increased housing stock. And no, as the Republicans say it's because of immigrants, that's a lie. We can't let their lies cloud this issue. We have to stop that nonsense. We have a housing stock issue, right? And so we are going to have to build a lot of housing, and it is going to take sort of a smart use of government power to see where we need housing and make sure that we do evidence-based decisions on that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. The next question goes to Mr. Windyboy. Mr. Windyboy, Montana's native peoples continue to face obstacles such as poor access to good health care, high poverty rates, lack of adequate basic infrastructure where many of them live. What would your priority be as a member of Congress to improve the lives of Montana's Native Americans?
I would support the recognizing of the treaties that the federal government has put forth to the Indian reservations. There's a saying out there that with the IHS lack of funding is don't get sick after June because there's not going to be a new budget to address any healthcare issues until October. There's a lot of things that need to happen. Going back to the Marshall Trilogy, moving forth to the treaties, into becoming U.S. citizens in 1924, we were able to finally be able to vote in the elections during the 1960s when the voting rights had come into place. So as far as being a former tribal leader for 12 years, I know the issues. I know what needs to be happening, and when I see all of these questionnaires come out, you never see Native American issues, but yet there are 5 reservations in this district, and I'm the man who can oversee these and prioritize as my priority because my people have been called inhuman for too long.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, your response.
Yeah, so there has been a long and tragic history between the relationships between the tribes and the federal government, and we need to start acknowledging that there was a genocidal policy initiated by the federal government, and the legacy of that lives on. I was talking to a supporter of mine who's from Indian country the other day, and she was making a point to me, which I agree with, that there is a possibility of maybe reestablishing parity. There's been some shifts in the United States Supreme Court. Gorsuch, who's a conservative justice, is much more open to recognizing tribal sovereignty, and that needs to be where this starts. There needs to be mutual respect, which has been lacking between the states, the federal governments, and the tribes. And what I want to see us do is I want to see us go to the tribes, listen to see what they want to do to solve the problems, and let them take the lead on it instead of imposing some colonialistic idea about what we think needs to happen. Let them decide what needs to happen, and then let's ask, how can we support you? And make sure that what we are doing to address issues such as addiction, crime, housing, and all these things are consistent with the philosophies and the values that the tribes have, right? Because we don't want to do that anymore. We want to give them a chance to move forward on their own merits. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lux, your response, please.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Brian Miller just said. We have to make sure that as we are addressing tribal issues, that we are listening to the tribes. It's something that I've made a center point of my campaign on tribal lands and everywhere else, is to spend more time listening than telling folks what they need, because Montana's far too big of a place for us all to need the same thing. And rather than telling any community what they need, I want to listen to them, hear what their concerns are, and then find a solution that fits what they need. Now, in doing that, I've spent thousands of miles traveling between the tribes in eastern Montana, listening to their concerns about mental health care, about access to jobs, about access to regular health care, and about taking care of the Native veterans, which disproportionately outnumber other communities across Montana. And I've sat down, I've spoken with them about what we can do to address those issues, and I want to see us have a policy that is set not by an independent coming in from the outside, but by representatives from the tribes that are working directly with the congressional delegation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The next question goes to Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller, health care remains difficult to afford or access for many Montanans. What is your solution to this persistent problem?
Yeah, sure. I'll solve the healthcare problem in 90 seconds. Sure. So we got to start with principles, and then we got to move into details. Okay. We need to acknowledge that there are two obstacles towards having a good healthcare system: greed and stupidity. Okay. It's obscene and disgusting and immoral that we let people profit off other people's pain. I mean, you don't have a choice when you eat healthcare. It's not like going and buying a big TV or something. That's a discretionary choice. But when you get things that are public necessities that we all need, those need to be treated differently, and we should not let people profit off those. This was a fateful decision that Richard Nixon made to go to a profit-based system. We need to unwind that now. How you get there is a separate question. In my remaining 40 seconds in solving this problem, here's what I'll tell you I'd like to see us do. I'd like to see the federal government set some standards, and then let's let the states experiment. We have 50 states. Obama made a huge error when he tried to impose a solution on everybody. We got to have this come from the ground up. We saw that. Remember when all the AstroTurf with Obamacare and people were saying, keep your government hands off my Medicare and all that nonsense, right? That was crazy. That just shows you people don't like that stuff. So let's let it come from the ground up. Some states will come up with good ideas. Some will try things. Let's let the experimentation occur, and it's going to take a minute, and we have to be patient. So I hope maybe that solves it, Chuck. I don't know.
Maybe we can come back to that later on. So, Mr. Lux, now you have 60 seconds to solve the healthcare problem in the
Well,
country.
you know, I think that I can at least point us in the right direction. Healthcare has been a very, very big key point of my campaign from the very beginning. And in Montana especially, we suffer from a lack of healthcare beyond what other states do because we're rural. We can't always drive the 3, 4, 5 hours we need to go and get a specialty care, especially if you're talking about the farmers and the other rural communities that are out there that don't have access to the infrastructure of Billings or Helena. So here are the things I want to see done. First off, I want to see a complete repeal of the subsidies that we are paying towards these for-profit insurance companies that are then charging exorbitant amounts for coverage on top of that. Instead, I want to see that money be used to build a single-payer healthcare system that can actually provide basic coverage, opt-in coverage for every single American. On top of that, I want to see a rural infrastructure grant to be able to create satellite locations for basic, preventative, and examination care across all of the small towns in Montana to make sure that the things that are big problems are not left until it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lux. Mr. Windy Boy, your response to this thorny dilemma here.
Thank you very much. I'll go back to the point of where I talked about on Native American issues. You know, the health, education, and welfare should be afforded to all Montanans across. Universal health care, I'll support that. But if the best we can get out of this Congress of having Medicaid reinstituted back in the system, I'll support that too. In Montana legislature, they just passed a Medicaid expansion. I voted for that because I believe everybody should be afforded affordable health care. Instead, this Congress had kicked off 73,000 Montanans off Medicaid who really need it. And so when you take a look at the concept of the treaties of what the federal government told the natives, the health, education, welfare, as long as the sun shines, as long as the water flows and the grass grows, that's the kind of promise that the federal government needs to be given to not only natives, but for everybody. And I'll be supportive of Native American issues the rest of my life.
Thank you. The next question goes to Mr. Lux. Let's go back to talking a little bit about the president. Many people believe that President Trump has overstepped his authority as president in many ways. Do you agree? And if you're elected, what can or would you do to rein in the president's powers and actions?
Oh, well, now there's a heavy question you're asking me. So, first, absolutely, the president has overstepped his authority. He has overstepped his constitutional authority, and he has overstepped his moral authority. First off, as I said, I'm a member of Citizens Impeachment, and I will work from day one to impeach him and any other member of the cabinet that violates their oath of office to the American people. Second of all, Congress needs to get aggressive about taking back the powers of the purse. The American people have suffered under illegal tariffs. They're now suffering under illegal wars. And all of this is not the powers of the president. It is the powers of Congress to be able to declare war. The power of the president, or it is the power of Congress to be able to declare war, and the powers of Congress to be able to declare tariffs. And those are two things that we can do immediately by electing a new representative who will stand up for the people of Montana, electing other representatives across the country that will stand up for the people of the United States, and growing a backbone and saying, no, we will not bow before a wannabe king. We will make sure that each and every American is representative above the interest of party or the president.
Thank you. Mr. Windy Boy, your response.
Thank you very much. You know, everything this guy said I agree with, but you ever notice one thing? None of them agreed with me. What I say, when this president had overstepped his powers, of course, the war in Iran is supposed to have be granted by the Congress. That's what the Constitution says. The tariffs have gone too far. It's hurt Montanans. It's hurting everybody across the board here in the state of Montana. And if impeachment is on the floor of the Congress, more than likely I'll support that. I'll vote for that. The authoritarian approach that this president has gone forth and pursued is wrong. The Congress needs to take back its powers because the last I heard, there's an administration, there's a legislative, and there's a judicial under the Constitution. Each of these need to operate as a check and balance system for everybody across the board. So as far as that's what Congress needs to do is grow a pair and let's go and move forward and let's do what's best for Montana as well as the country. Thank you.
Mr. Miller, your response, please.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, we got to impeach him. The other thing we need to do once he's gone is we got to Trump-proof the presidency going forward. Because what this guy did was anything that wasn't tied down, he took it. The level of corruption is insane, the abuse of power, the attacks on universities. I mean, heck, he's basically even creating like a Soviet-style economy where he goes around and threatens CEOs who they're going to hire. So this is like, it's ironic that the Republicans are basically bringing Soviet-style communist economies to the United States of America. I mean, Ronald Reagan would be rolling in his grave if he could see what this Republican Party has done. These guys are just the biggest traitors to the Constitution. I am so disappointed in these Republicans. Their whole lives have said they care about the Constitution. They don't care anymore. We need to realize these guys are not our friends. They're not being helpful. So it's going to take a major process, and we got to make sure that no future president from any party can ever do this kind of stuff again to us.
Thank you. The next question goes to Mr. Windyboy. Mr. Windyboy, we have a huge growing disparity in this country between the haves and the have-nots, a massive wealth gap, so to speak. What, if anything, should Congress do about that?
First of all, we need to repeal this big, beautiful bill that has increased the federal deficit by $4.8 trillion. And the top 1% of the people who are getting the benefits in tax breaks, that's not fair to the average Montanan. We have a lot of issues that need to be addressed in Montana that needs to be prioritized. And the reprioritizing of these particular issues need to happen from day one. I've been in the legislature for 24 years. I balanced all the budgets. I voted for them. That's what needs to happen here. We need to reprioritize the priorities that's going to be impactful for everyday Montanans. We're doing away with Medicaid and all of these other issues that have been shut down and have been taken away. That's not fair to Montanans. That's not our values. And as far as the have-nots, those are the particular issues that need to be reprioritized and needs to be shifted back as a priority. Top 1%, some of those he even mentioned that they are willing to take the increased tax burden to make that adjustment. Just in 2 years, our competitor on the Republican side voted for that $4.8 trillion. Can you imagine what 12 zeros behind a number is? That's insane. That's ludicrous. It should be against the law. And if something like that needs to happen, we need to send somebody to D.C. with the experience and the know-how to solve problems and bring a solution to the floor. And I'm the one who can do that.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, your response.
Yes, so as Windyboy said, we do have to repeal and replace the One Big Beautiful Bill. For example, they cut $1 trillion from Medicaid. They gave $1 trillion in tax cuts to the top 1%. So that's one we got to reverse right off the gate. I mean, that's a straightforward one. Beyond that, it gets a lot more complicated. We're going to have some serious reforms. As it stands right now, the top 10% of wealth holders in the United States of America control 66% of the national net worth. The bottom 50% only hold 4%. And those are stats from the Federal Reserve of St. Louis. So we have deep structural problems. One thing that we must do is we have to have corporations taxed at a fair rate. Right now, corporate tax receipts only account for 10% of our federal revenue. I want to see that increase to 20-25%. And these trickle-down people that always say you're going to kill the economy, they're lying to you. Under the Eisenhower and the Clinton administrations, which is when we had fairer rates on corporations, the GDP was higher, and those were the only two periods in modern American history where we actually had a budget surplus. So one of the things we have to do is get over this lie of trickle-down economics. It's a complete lie, and we have to destroy it starting in 2026. Only once we've got that done can we move forward to a realistic federal budget. And I hope we talk about the debt. I don't want to start now, but that's also related to this. Thank you.
We are going to talk about the debt, but
good.
first, Mr. Lux, your response to that question.
Man, they haven't left me a whole lot to say up here. I agree with everything so far. We must repeal.
You can find something.
We have to repeal the big beautiful bill. We have to make sure that we are increasing the tax rate on corporations. I'm a little more aggressive. I'd like to see it between 25 and 30% of our GDP. I also agree that we need to create a higher tax rate on ultra high net worth individuals because there's no reason that the top 1% are able to hoard so much of this country's wealth. Lastly, I also want to see a new statistic made by the Bureau of Labor Statistics that will do an updated cost of living adjustment for full cost of living every single year. And I want to see a bill passed through Congress that will make it so that the minimum wage is automatically adjusted based off of that and not waiting for bureaucratic approval. And then at that point, I would look at Congress, I would look at all these mega corporations and say, we don't want to pay anymore. And I'd say, if you don't want to continue to up the minimum wage, then stop contributing to the factors of inflation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question goes to Mr. Miller. Let's continue somewhat in this vein. You know, President Trump has slashed the budgets for many federal agencies, while at the same time overseeing huge increases in the federal debt. Anything wrong with this picture? Is he on the right path? I'm assuming perhaps not. If not, what's your idea of the path we should be pursuing on these issues?
Do I have 90 seconds for this? Is that right? Or a minute?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
All right. So huge increases in the debt. And interestingly, every Republican president in modern history has blown the debt through the roof. Okay. So there's two very specific things we have to do to get control of the debt. One is we have to start scoring federal budgets on 2-year cycles. The One Big Beautiful Bill does a 10-year score cycle that is absolutely meaningless. It's fantasy. It's economic fantasy. Under a 2-year cycle, like we do in Montana, because we can't print our own money, we have to have a balanced budget. You know exactly how much money's coming in relatively and how much is going out. So that's number one. The second thing that we have to do, and this is based on the latest economic research from a man named Ray Dalio, who is a hedge fund billionaire. He just wrote a book on this called How Countries Go Broke. I recommend that every American who cares about their country read that book. And he makes the argument that we cannot allow annual deficit spending to exceed 3%. That needs to be a red line starting in the next budget. The last budget, the One Big Beautiful Bill, had annual deficit spending of 6.5%. And I'm sure if Trump has his way, he wants to now increase the federal military budget to $1.5 trillion so he can go fight whatever next war he wants to distract from the Epstein, whatever else is in the Epstein files, right? We can't let that happen. We need to reverse that trend. So those are specific action items that we must do immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Lux, your response.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree. We do need to be able to get this under control. We need to be able to take a very serious look at, the current government. They sit there and they talk all the time about waste, fraud, and abuse. Well, what do I see as waste, fraud, and abuse? I see increasing our military spending to $1.5 trillion as waste, fraud, and abuse. I see the egregious amount of money that has been spent to terrorize American citizens with putting ICE onto our streets as waste, fraud, and abuse. And I see the efforts that are being made to roll back things like Medicare as waste, fraud, and abuse. Because although, yes, that is something that we spend, in my opinion, keeping the American people healthy, keeping the American people sound, that is how we produce a better, more functional society, and not one that is so reliant on all of these welfare systems that they seem to want to destroy so badly. I also agree with Mr. Miller's point that we do need to significantly reduce the deficit spending. We need to be able to bring it under that 3% if we have any hope of reversing this trend of out-of-control deficit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lux. Mr. Windy Boy, your response.
Thank you very much. And 1.5 trillion for spending on the military is also another ludicrous statement. And I think that, as I said before, that the priorities need to be reprioritized by the Congress. Because when you take a look at the DEI issue, diversity, equity, and inclusion, USDA had pulled back funds from Indian country. There were 50 grants that were given. 49 have been repealed. Why? Because it fit under the DEI racial issue. You got to remember that tribal governments are political entities. They're not a racial entity. And so there's a difference about the reprioritizing of a lot of these issues. And also, too, when you talk about a lot of these things about Medicaid, you know, I sat on a conference call or town hall with our Congress, and he said that he supported the Medicaid approach that is now in place because he has facts that there were Medicaid fraud. I told him, show me the proof, show me the data. And to this day, he hasn't shown me nothing.
Thank you. The next question goes to Mr. Lux. We haven't talked a lot about jobs and the economy in Montana. And of course, that's a fairly wide issue, and you're just a member of Congress, but I was wondering if you're elected and you could choose one thing that would help improve the economy and job prospects in the state, what would that be?
Well, only one thing. Now you're really limited.
Well,
All right, well, let's think about it.
Say, maybe not one thing. If you want to say a few more, that's fine. Yeah.
It's tough.
What are your priorities? Let's put it that way.
All right, well, when it comes to that, the first priority that I'd put in that is part of what I'm calling a Rural Infrastructure Act that I want to see passed to better the lives of both Montanans and Americans and other rural communities all across the country. And a big part of that is going to be how we source jobs for those who are in our small towns. Because right now, what do we hear two things about all the time? There's no jobs, and we can't find anybody to work. And how the hell do those two things go together? So what I want to see happen with that is I want to see aggressive new funding being added to, one, increasing broadband access in rural communities, two, increasing access to teleappointments and satellite in-person locations so that people in our rural communities have access to finding jobs through a Jobs Corps program. And three, I want to see that same Jobs Corps program have the funding to reach out to our small family-owned farms, to our family-owned ranches, and to the other small businesses across eastern Montana to find out what their business needs are and to then put that forward into vocational training for those people who are looking for jobs in our small towns. Because we have an economy here in Montana, and we have people who need work. But what we don't have is any way to connect the two. Thank you. There's one thing.
There we go.
Got it.
One plus a couple others. That's good, though. Mr. Windy Boy, your response.
Thank you very much. Education and opportunity. Those are two instead of one that tie into one. Number one, when you take a look at the education system in today's world, we're pretty close to the bottom as far as those statistics go. Education needs to be added under the opportunity. And I'll give you an example. Do I know everything? No. Do the federal government folks know everything? No. Do the state know everything? No. What I've done is I put $200,000 to a curriculum to build meat cutting processing at Northern Montana. That's an opportunity for us. Why should we have to bring in meat from other countries and out of state when we have 3 million cows and 1 million people? That's 3 cows to 1 person. And we need to take a hold of keep our grass-fed and our grain-fed cattle in state and put it in our freezers locally here. That's providing opportunities, and that's what I'm doing. I'm a pragmatic man, and I want common sense solutions that's going to move forward to support Montanans and their opportunities. College isn't everything, isn't for everybody, but we need to provide the vocational education piece for Montanans to provide them opportunity. That's what we need to support, our local people.
Thank you, Mr. Windy Boy. Mr. Miller, your response.
Yeah, I agree with Sam and Windy Boy, and I want to add, first off, when Trump came into office, he said he wanted to revitalize manufacturing, and then he had this stupid tariff thing, which hasn't done anything but cost us jobs. However, what a lot of people don't know is that at the time that he did that, there were 400,000 manufacturing jobs in the United States of America that weren't filled. And what Windy Boy just said is right on the money, is that there is a proper role, and Sam said this too, is that there's a proper role in which government sometimes needs to come in and make sure that the gap between what we want to see in the free enterprise system, because we are a free enterprise society, and what we need to see as a society itself are met. And so we do need to drastically expand our agricultural infrastructure. And I don't know if you're going to get into this, Chuck, but like ag markets are in big, big trouble right now. Trump has really hit them hard with his trade war. And one of the things that's going to be key to this is we're going to have to have a farm bill that's for the farmer, not the corporation, because big ag is running the table on everybody, and we do need to do more infrastructure projects to support our small family farms.
Thank you. Mr. Lux, your response.
I mean, I fully agree with that. When it comes to the farm bill, for instance, one of the big things I sit there and say is, yes, we need a clean passing farm bill. But we've already seen it with how contentious Congress is now, that it is becoming more and more unreliable to pass any large omnibus bill because both sides are trying to throw a million unrelated things in there. It gets so complicated, and then it gets kicked down the road again and again and again and again. So while I will absolutely spend every day that I'm in Congress advocating for the passing of a clean farm bill, I'm also pulling things out of there. I've already built prototype single-issue legislation and gotten dozens of other candidates from all across the country to sign on, say that they will support it on day one when we're elected office. Things like giving us MCOOL legislation to make sure that $9 billion a year is going back into our family farms because American beef is going to be sold as American beef and the Venezuelan beef isn't. Things like a right to repair bill that's going to make sure that farmers aren't left in the lurch waiting, and many more. So thank you.
Next question goes to Mr. Winterboy. Mr. Winterboy, do you think that we should encourage the expansion of union representation of workers in Montana and the country? And if so, how would you as a member of Congress achieve that goal?
Thank you very much. As I mentioned, that in the 24 years that I've spent in the legislature, every time a right to work bill came before us, not only did I vote no, I also got up and spoke against it because union workers and union members were put in place for so many decades to support the right to speak out. And that's what I supported. And once I get to Congress, if anything of union support, I'm going to get behind 110%. Because do I know everything that's going on a local level? No. But I will. But I'll tell you one thing: that when people, especially union members, come to me and give me some recommendations, of course I'm going to take into consideration because they are the ones that are being impacted. Our teachers leave the state who are union members for better paying jobs, for better benefits. Why can't we provide that opportunity here in Montana? That's what I'm going to support. Is I'm going to make sure that if there is legislation that's going to have impacts or negative impacts on unions and union workers, I'm going to support the unions first and foremost. And so that's what we need to do. We need to protect our people. We need to protect our workers. We need to do all of these protections just for Montanan, because if we don't, outside interest, outside people moving into Montana is going to take advantage of that, and they're going to erode that as fast as they can. That's what I'll do, support unions.
Thank you. Mr. Miller.
Yeah, so unions have been under attack in America for a long, long time. We need to change that trend. I always like to say to people, if you like a weekend, thank the unions, because you wouldn't have weekends if there wasn't for unions. You wouldn't have 40-hour work weeks. You wouldn't have benefits. You wouldn't have anything. And it appalls me when you see these people like Republicans and conservatives attacking unions when they love it just as much as everybody else. So we got to knock off the nonsense and realize that it's a basic principle that if management and capital is organized, workers have to be organized too. It's a no-brainer. And in that process, you have some parity and you have some bargaining power. This is absolutely critical. So we need to do a lot more to make sure that we strengthen the Labor Standards Act and do other things to make it easier for unions to organize. Because, for instance, we need to see places like Amazon and other things like that, and a lot of these huge billionaire corporations that just want to crush workers to death. We need to start leveling the playing field. And the Trump administration has been horrible on workers, and we got to do some big work on that.
Mr. Lux.
I've made no secret that since I started my campaign that I've been as pro-union as you can get. My great-grandfather died on Blair Mountain fighting for union rights back in the day, working as one of the rednecks. And I've continued that on. My whole family has. Here in Montana, we remember the Copper Kings. We remember how bad it can get. And like my contemporaries up here on the stage have said, we need to make sure that moving forward, it is easier for our unions to organize. Now, in addition to making sure that we are fighting against right to work and making sure that we're expanding access to labor laws, the other thing that we desperately need to do is make sure that as we talk about modernizing into the next century, as we talk about building renewable energies, building new manufacturing, building all the things we're going to need for the next era of the American future, that we are doing everything we can to make sure it is being built worker first, so that the people who have called Montana home don't have to move away to find those new good jobs. That's something that I'm already actively working with unions to organize, and something I will continue to work on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lux. Mr. Miller, this question goes to you first. Consumers, producers, and businesses in America operate in an economy increasingly dominated by large monopolistic companies in many sectors, from ag to tech, healthcare, banking, etc. Do you see this as a problem? And if so, what should Congress, or what can Congress do about it?
No, there's no problem. We just need to let Jeff Bezos own everything, and we'll be fine, Chuck.
Yeah.
Is this a problem? Yeah, this is a problem. Everybody knows it's a problem. No, I'm just giving you, I'm just having fun there. But yeah, so this is, we mentioned this earlier, and this is a trend line that we have seen going on for a long, long time, and it's finally coming to a head. I mentioned the statistics earlier on income inequality, and everybody is feeling it, right? Everybody's feeling it. So we do need to have a major paradigm shift in the United States of America about how we look at our economy and the outsized power that corporations have. I am not against corporations. They're a necessary evil. They're a necessary evil. They provide certain advantages. But I always laugh at my quote-unquote conservative friends that love corporations. You know, the founders were very, very skeptical of corporations and corporate power. They wanted this democracy to be a place that was run by the people. We've been losing that over the past several decades, okay? We all know that. It's time to get it back. And like the things I mentioned earlier, like just telling these people, these special interests, and this is, unfortunately, this goes back to Citizens United and money in politics and all these things. We have to start telling these wealthy people and these corporations, you guys are gonna have to take a back seat for a minute, and we're gonna have to start putting the people first. And that is gonna take political will, and honestly, both parties have to work on that. The Republicans have a worse problem, but we do have a problem in the Democratic Party with this dark money stuff that we also have to deal with. It's going to take a heavy lift, but I think we got to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Lux, your response.
Well, I mean, like I said earlier, I'm all in favor of aggressively raising that corporate tax rate. And as somebody that's been a small business owner most of my life, has even owned a couple of corporate entities throughout my life, I can say that we do need to aggressively increase the tax burden that's being put onto them. We need to end Citizens United. We absolutely have to get money out of politics, like Mr. Miller just said. And we need to make sure that moving forward, we truly are a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. That's why I'm up here running, because, I mean, shoot, I'm a farrier. I'm about as close to other people as you can get. We also need to make sure that we are doing everything we can to break up these large corporate monopolies, because right now, you know, we have Amazon, we have all these huge corporations that are controlling so much of the market. And we like to tout ourselves, oh, we're a free enterprise, oh, we're a capitalist society. No, we're not. We're corporate welfare at best. Mm-hmm. And that is something that we have to fix, because there is no opportunity for the American people to move up if the American people are being held down by these huge bloated corporations that are being protected by our government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lux. Mr. Windy Boy, your response.
Thank you very much. Inequality. I know inequality firsthand. 68 years of inequality of what's happening across this country. What made me decide to run for this office is when I read the article by our opponent, Representative Downing. Basically, what he told us is that he's going to take Montana down the same path that he's taken us down the last 2 years. Can you imagine, first of all, conservatives need to quit calling themselves conservative, because those so-called conservatives added a $4.8 trillion to this federal deficit. And so when you start to take a look at the inequality of what's going on for Montanans, can you imagine how many people of our Montanans only make $10 an hour, which is a minimum wage, with the added cost of health care, with the added cost of everything else that's going up, housing and everything else up? They're barely making it from paycheck to paycheck. That's the inequality that needs to be shifted back in favor of Montanans, not the rich and wealthy. Not everybody eats from a golden fork. Thank you.
Thank you. This will be our last question before we go to our closing statements. And this question goes first to Mr. Lux. Of course, the job, as we talked about earlier, is if you're nominated, is defeating Troy Downing. Why are you the best person on this stage to take on the GOP nominee and win this race? Most people in the state have no idea who you are. How are you going to go from ground zero to winning this vital race?
Well, two parts to that. First off, why am I the best person to take on Troy Downing? Well, the reality is I've never wanted to be in politics. This has never been my dream in life. But what it has been is to be out here in eastern Montana, to be able to build myself up within the ranching community I've always called home, and to be a farrier out here working on people's horses. And in that job, I see more and more people, farmers and ranchers every day who are struggling, who cannot get by with where we are in this country today. And I very much believe that if you have the ability to try to change something you see as wrong, you absolutely have the obligation to try. So that's the only reason I'm on the stage, is because I have an obligation to my friends, to my neighbors, to each and every one of you out here, all across the state of Montana, to try to right the wrongs I'm seeing are making it harder to live here. Now, to the second part of it, who am I and how am I going to get out there? Well, in the past almost a year now, I've put in over 38,000 miles of travel all across the state. I have met with groups big and small, down to the fact I had one guy in Forsyth that said, hey, when you come to Forsyth, and I said, hey, I will be there to make sure that you get represented. And that is what I'm going to continue to do, both now and once I'm elected. Because I intend to spend as little time in Washington, D.C. as I possibly can. I'm going to be out here in eastern Montana where I belong, listening to the people of eastern Montana and making sure that their interests are represented. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Windy Boy, your response.
Thank you very much. I'm 67 years old. I'm born and raised in Montana. Troy Downing, he came in from out of state a few years ago, ran for a statewide office, and he got elected. He's representing us on the Eastern District. When he lives in Big Sky, Montana, that's in District 1. Why isn't he running in a District 1 position? As far as all of the issues that we talked about today, being 12 years experience as a elected tribal leader, 24 years as a state legislator, people want me, keeps putting me back into office. And that's why I'm the most qualified and most best candidate to be sent to D.C. to solve Montana's issues, because I lived them, I grew up with them. I milked cows as a young man at 4 o'clock in the morning. I hauled in water and wood for my mother to make it through the day. I know what Montana is about. Montanans are hard-working members and to create opportunities, not only for the farmers, but also for those people who are bringing companies into the state to assist our farmers and ranchers. That's real progress, and that's what's going to help Montanans, is to provide them that opportunity.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Miller.
Yeah, thanks. So I've been here for over 25 years, and I think one of the things that people are interested in is not having politicians. They want just regular people who haven't been in the system. I can say that as an attorney, I've worked all over the state representing regular people. I've tried cases in front of regular juries in places like Ravalli County, Beaverhead County. I have a sentiment, I think, of how people think, which I think is critical. Something else I think I bring to the table is I'm kind of a nerd. And I like to study economics and political science, and I like to try to get things right. I like to try to think through the problems. We are facing a lot of complex problems, okay? And this idea of faith-based government that the Trump administration has, we got to get off of that. We need evidence-based, rational approaches to our problems. That's something I just like. I like solving difficult problems. It's what I've done professionally for over 25 years. And, you know, I don't really compare myself to other people as to who's better. That's up to you guys to decide. But all I say is this, is I just have certain skill sets, and I offer them. And if people are interested, I'm happy to go do it.
Thank you. And now it's time for the closing statements by each candidate. Each of them have 2 minutes. We'll go from right to left. We'll start out with Mr. Miller.
Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate it. Hope we get to do this again. I think one thing you've seen here tonight is that we have ideas. The other side's morally, ethically, and intellectually bankrupt. If anything good's going to happen, if we're going to get out of this jam we're in, it's going to come from people like us. It's not going to come from the other side, and we need to be clear about that. You know, I believe that we are facing probably the greatest threat to the Republic that we've seen in 250 years. There is a conspiracy of forces that want to end our constitutional republic as we know it. We've talked about some of these tonight, but not all of these. They include this billionaire class, the Epstein elites. I'm sorry we didn't get to talk about Epstein, but I know we can't cover everything. And then the state of Israel, which has hijacked our United States military. And we need to get clear about that. You know, the founders were very worried about foreign powers taking over the United States of America, and they put in safeguards to prevent that. And guess what? The Trump administration blew through every one, and Troy Downing, because he's lazy and morally degenerate and doesn't care about his job, just let every single one of those guardrails be blown off. And so now it is going to be up to regular people like you who are paying attention to this situation and are going to get serious. Because the reality, too, folks, is that, like, whoever goes forward to the next round of the Hunger Games, okay, and whoever goes to D.C., that's just the beginning. You're going to have to stay engaged in this thing. This is your country and our country. And I think that the people are ready to see just regular folks who are not experts, who are not politicians, who don't know everything, who are willing to just get in there and give it a shot. And I think that we need to get away from this whole celebrity politician thing and just start being real about our problems, start being straightforward about our problems. And even though I know a lot of people are scared out there because we've seen it, just tell you, so, as they say sometimes, it's darkest before the dawn. And I do think there is a great American 21st century for us if we are willing to go for it. And I appreciate your attention tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Lux.
First off, thank you everybody so much for being here today and for listening to all the great candidates we have up here. Now, as I said, I'm probably not the most polished. I may not be the most educated person up here. But who I am is somebody that spends every single day getting out there and working hard to make sure that my family and the people that I care about are taken care of. And it's something that I'm going to take to Washington if you send me there. I will make sure that the rights of our women and children are protected because I have a family and I want to make sure that they are taken care of. I will make sure that our farmers and ranchers are taken care of because I know the struggle of being out there on those ranches and trying to make ends meet when everything from our economy to our government is doing everything they can to fight against us. I will make sure that health care becomes something we can afford because as somebody who has never had access to any amount of health care whatsoever, I know how bad it is, and I know how bleak it can be when you look at the fact that your retirement plan is working until you're too old and getting kicked in the head, because hopefully at least that's quick. I will make sure that I show up every single day for the people of Montana. I will show up here in Helena. I will show up in Glendive. I will show up in Washington, D.C. No matter how bad it is, no matter if I am sick or if I am kicked by a horse, I have always shown up because I have to, and that is the work ethic that I'm going to take to Washington. We don't need any more billionaires running our country. We don't need any more foreign governments running our country, and we don't need anybody except for a Montanan and an American representing the people here in our state. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Lux. And finally, Mr. Windyboy, your close.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of Montanans for listening. And as you can see, that we do have a lot of things in common. But what I say in my closing is I have a slogan with my campaign is I'm the candidate that delivers. I don't know if the politician definition was directed at me, but I can tell you the difference between a politician and a lawmaker. A politician lies to people. I'm a lawmaker that got a good number of my bills through this legislature. 12 years of experience as a tribal leader, 24 years as a legislator. That's nothing to look negative at. That gives me the experience because this job needs no on-the-job training. That's what's going to happen. If you send me over there, I know the process. I'll get right there, getting ready to roll up my sleeves, and I'll get the job done for Montana. That's what needs to happen, because when you start to take a look at a lot of the issues that we talked about, there are many issues that were not talked about, and those are the issues that I've spent and heard and worked on, and just to prove that point is that I'm a pragmatic lawmaker. I have gotten things done here that I've worked across the aisle. I'm a realist. I'll only have one vote out of 435, and if 51% don't agree with me, nothing is going to get done. But getting things done is his specialty. You can check my record. You can fact check all of my votes and everything, and you'll see that I've proven that. One time in the legislature, when I didn't caucus with the Democrats, I didn't agree with some of the things that they were doing. I sat in the chamber and I was called a caucus of one. I'd rather be a caucus of one to make the right decision for the people that I serve, and that's what I'm going to do when I get sent to D.C., is that I'm going to make the right decision with a common sense approach for all of Montana, and Montana's going to be number one.
Thank you, Mr. Windeboy. Let's have a hand for all of our fine candidates here. So that wraps up our debate this afternoon. I'd like to sincerely thank all the candidates for taking time out of their busy schedule to take part today and to help inform Montana's primary election voters. The primary election is June 2nd. If you haven't registered to vote, you can do it through your county election office, including up to and on election day. If you're already registered and you've requested an absentee ballot, those will be in the mail just 4 weeks from now. Please get out and vote this primary election, and thank you for joining us.